So I'm not going to pretend to be an expert on cloth and physics together. I'll just share some of my observations. So all boxes are 10 by 10 by 10 by 1 segment, right? And all planes are 30 by 30 with 40 segments. So can cloth and physics interact? In a short answer, yes. In a long answer, it's a bit more complicated. So on the red one here, we have a cloth plane and we have a physics box. And the collision between the cloth and the physics is purely done on a collision operator, right? In the middle here, we have a cloth plane and a cloth box. And obviously CUDA is enabled and all collisions are being calculated with CUDA. I'm going to let this thing calculate while we're talking. On the blue box, we have a cloth plane, and then we've added a shape operator into the flow, which actually, because the cloth is all the binds, right? So we're adding shapes on all the binds, and I've adjusted the size so that none of the spheres are intersecting the shape spheres, right? So the shapes that are the cloth binds have been turned into PhysX. And then we have a PhysX box. Now, the collision is actually physics to physics. So in other words, the tiny spheres that are the cloth binds are actually what are colliding. But to help with better collision, I also added the box as part of the collider, right? But basically here we do have physics to physics collision, but it looks like cloths, and you can see my spacing and everything here. If we just take a look at the flow for completeness in sharing the information, you can kind of see my setup here, right? And I've explained it pretty well through documentation. So when we look at this animation, and the question originally was, can physics and cloth interact? Yes, that can. Does it do everything you expect it to? I'm not 100% sure. And what exact case scenario would you want to use cloth interacting with physics or physics interacting with cloth? I'll try and think of an answer or two for that. If I select my tyFlow, and right now you can see some jaggedy edges, right? That's just the way it is with the cloth here, and we go in and put a modifier on our actual tyFlow flow, we get a much smoother result and a much better result, right? So if I was going to do this cloth animation like this, then that would be how I do it. Now, notice something. I turn the turbo smooth off and our objects reappear, and also I turn the turbo smooth on and this middle cloth appears to have been rounded because turbo smooth rounds, right? But yet the box is still square when we see the cloth collapsing. So even this is like a bit of a side discussion, and I seem to like side discussions. Turbo smooth is applied as an after, right? So in other words, tyFlow, while it's calculating all these events, when we apply turbo smooth here, tyFlow knows nothing about it. And we can really confirm that by if I select it and deselect it, or even if I change something about it, tyFlow doesn't recalculate. The other thing that's important to note about putting the turbo smooth on the tyFlow object, even though it makes our cloth look nicer, it makes tyFlow things disappear while it's active. So just be aware of that. If you notice, all three boxes are here. Our little physics spheres that are attached to our cloth binds are there. The minute we turn on the turbo smooth, that disappears, and we do get a false smoothing on our cloth collider object, but it's post-processing, like I said. So that's an intro into cloth and PhysX. Let's see if we can come up with some possible practical application of why you might want cloth and PhysX to interact. But if you were going to do it, you need to understand the principle that A, you can just do a cloth and have it collide with some sort of object, right, physics or not. Alright, you can add spheres or shapes to your cloth binds that you can then turn into PhysX shapes that will then interact with PhysX objects. Alright, that's my quick review for right now. Yeah, PhysX and cloth is possible, but it does come with some caveats and some little troubleshooting issues like PhysX objects kind of randomly moving across the floor like this cloth trying to drag itself across, or just little things that you're going to have to watch out for. This cloth tried to just keep floating. Some of these wooden poles kind of glide. These are things that are going to have to be fixed to do it.